So, you know, what are your thoughts about AI?
AI. So I've given this a lot of thought over the past few years with AI. It's like if you're living under a rock, you don't think about it. But I'm not an early adopter on many things. There's
Okay.
certain things I'll be an early
I was
adopter,
gonna
but
say.
things like AI or some of those other technologies, I'll wait. But AI is one of those technologies that you can't ignore anymore. And over the last year, I started using it for our company in various ways.
Your company being
So for a
I
couple
know what company
a
it is, but
couple
I
of
just
a
want you
couple
to
of our companies. Yeah, so I started using AI for our hair care company,
Okay.
and I started using it for our service company, the in laundromats. And it was like anything else when a new technology comes around, you start hearing it, and there's some groundswell with media, and it starts becoming more of a buzzword.
Yeah.
For me at least, I have to look into it and do research. Obviously, I know what AI means. I know what I mean, what was that Will Smith movie years ago? AI, wasn't there a robot movie or iRobot, something about
Yeah,
AI? Anyway, so the
that's
idea,
right.
the idea was I always kind of understood what it was. And the more I looked into it, the more I realized that it was one of those technologies that if you don't try to adopt it or use it, you're going to be left behind. And the benefits of using AI, after seeing AI in practice, you realize I can use this. This is something that it can streamline a process, or it can. Uh, I don't want to say replace a role, but it can certainly augment someone's role, right? It's a very usable technology. And like anything, as it progresses and becomes better, I had to look at it. So using AI for things like research, generating the framework of a blog. That's actually what I started using it for, was generating the framework for something like an article about hairstyles, for example.
What was the tech you used?
GPT
Oh, that's what you used to help
to
set
start.
up
That was the
Okay,
very first AI I personally went out and started using, just
okay,
because that was at the time, and we're talking very recent, in the last half a year, 8 months.
okay.
That was what was in the media. That was the name I knew, so I just looked it up.
Yeah,
Started using, started understanding how it worked, and using it for some of those tasks I would never consider using a computer for. So write a blog article for uh, steps to clean and condition your hair. Right,
okay.
an article I would write, or I'd sit down with one of my staff to write, and start seeing those results, and it's pretty good stuff as long as you can validate the data coming in.
I was gonna
That
ask you, what'd you think about the output?
what I learned in trying to adopt this technology into my business in real time was, if you ask for it to be cited or sourced, it does a good job of citing it and sourcing it.
Okay.
And I think when I started to change my opinion of AI, not that I had a bad opinion, but it was one of those, this'll pass,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But as you start seeing in the media, AI popping up everywhere, you realize it's not going to pass, at least now, and I should probably learn what it is. Um, when asking for those things like blog articles that have sites or sources, and then doing the research to see if they're accurate, and
Yeah.
they are, it start to I started to realize, okay, this technology has a utility in my business, and this is a measurable impact, because one, it's time. You ask for an article, or you ask for an outline of a plan, seconds you can have it. And I mean, obviously there's still some, over time it develops, but there's still some, I wouldn't just turn around and put it out,
Right.
but
There's a little bit of QC that you need to put into it.
there's QC. But at least for me, and being on the creative side of my business, when I'm involved with writing or creating marketing materials or whatever, that blank page hurdle, it immediately provides you a framework and
No,
gets
that's
you
valid,
going.
right?
Yeah, and I so with AI now, looking at it after working with it for 8 months,
Yeah.
really putting some AI generated content out in the market and getting good feedback, using it for some packaging design improvements, using it for, like I said, cited um, blogs, things like this. It's now become part of my business, and it makes my small team look much larger.
Yeah, because
And
you're able to get more done because it is tools.
right, get more done. In 3 months ago, I started using AI in a different way. In addition to the blogs and the writings and the frameworks for these printed, the collateral marketing materials,
Yeah.
I started using it for graphics,
Okay.
Dali, right?
Yep.
And at first, it was like it was when I first started working with AI in general. It's alarming. You ask for a type of a photo or a picture, and it will produce something for you. What I've realized, and this is in my, I'm writing a children's book. I told you, coming up with a concept, helping to build a prototype to visualize, using AI to generate those graphics has been it's been an unbelievably critical component to being able to progress. And it's something that in the past, maybe I would try to sketch, but I'm
Mhm.
not. I'm not an artist that way.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't sketch pictures. I might try to reach out to someone to
Yeah.
help. What it's allowed me to do, because writing the book, it's just me, it's a team of one and my illustrator.
Okay.
It's allowed me to take the thought in my head, and then it just comes down to how well I can describe it and
Mhm.
ask Dali or the AI
The
to
prompts,
to
yeah.
make it. But it's allowed me to come up with an MVP or this product that I can further. It helps me further visualize the finished product. And so and I know for my experience, that's scratching the surface of AI
Yeah.
because there's a lot more. And I understand, and looking deeper into AI's uses outside of just my experience. One thing that we came up with in our hair care company was AI generated models. Unbelievable.
Okay.
AI generated Instagram models, and realizing that that's a thing,
Yeah.
having an internal discussion about the validity of that. My stance now,
Mhm.
after working with AI and product that I've put on the market, working with it to help me develop a book, uh, to visualize the things in my head.
Yeah.
What my stance is different. I look at it and say, okay, maybe a AI generated Instagram model crosses the line in some ways, but if you really think about it, I used this example the other day when talking about it to some of my staff. Tony the Tiger.
Okay.
He They showed him playing soccer and talking about his frosted flakes, right?
Yeah.
So you have this AI generated persona talking about a hairstyle, and the AI can generate hairstyles. Yeah, I think you know who I'm talking about. It says the Spanish model, this AI generated Instagram model that's
No, I don't actually, now that you're saying that.
tons of followers. The statistic I heard was this AI generated model generates 9,000 or 10,000 a month for the brand that uses it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it's
I'll have
actually
to take a
generating
look.
money.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I'll have to put that in our show notes.
yeah, but when you think about it, I mean, on one hand, maybe there's some ethical issues with someone that doesn't realize it's AI,
Yeah.
kids, young people, impressionable minds. But if you think about just going back to high level marketing, Tony the Tiger,
Yeah.
that's a cartoon that was shown doing human things. Obviously, anybody looking at it would realize that that tiger is not real, but
You
it's
would
a
hope.
persona,
Yeah.
right? It's a persona generated by a brand
Yeah.
that is selling a product and saying you need this sugar covered cereal in your life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it's obviously many steps further, or orders of magnitude more advanced, to the point where you visually can't tell it's crossed the uncanny valley.
Yeah.
Now it just looks like a human, right? So I think overall AI is it's very useful for a lot of there's a lot of uses right now currently
Yeah.
that companies are using, people, individuals, companies, whatever. I think in going into the future, we just have to be careful with it, because in the same regard where you have, AI helping you generate, say, the framework of a blog or a blog altogether, maybe a blog start to finish
Yeah.
or a video script or whatever, or generating graphics, which now that when you use AI with a generated graphic and you start to see that out in the wild, you realize, oh, that was generated by AI,
Yeah.
right? The hands are messed up. Whatever, there's a tell.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there's some other implications that maybe would require some consideration or control. I haven't followed any of Elon Musk's thoughts on it. I know that
Okay.
there's a lot of thoughts around
Well,
that.
he's suing Sam Altman right now, saying that they didn't honor their mission as a nonprofit at OpenAI.
I did hear something
Yeah.
about that, but I haven't gone in a deep dive to AI to understand the full positions. I just know from my perspective that when you start talking about AI as modified bots doing research,
Yeah.
then you get into a situation where the internet is being used by humans and AI.
Mhm.
And that could create, I could see some potential issues there. Um, Obviously, issues with fakes, uh, deep
Yeah.
fakes, I think they're called. I've seen some AI generated images. A pretty famous one in our industry was it Kim Kardashian, AI generated Kim Kardashian that looks just like her. And you do get in, that there can be some obvious malice,
Oh, yeah. I've
you know.
seen a lot of Tom Cruise ones. They crack me up.
Right. So my I feel like it's obvious, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's going to be here, Terminator 2 style, but I see that the I see the usefulness in business. I see the efficiencies it can give. I can see that, there are ways that AI can help businesses either get to market faster, produce more. It can help someone, and it's not about losing a position. It's about augmenting an output.
Well, I
And,
mean, humanity's had to constantly find new ways to create value, right?
mhm.
Do you
It-
think there's a duty that almost should be a part of the people creating the tech to also help usher in how human value now transitions?
there's there's different groups. So if you're talking about the people that are behind the actual technology,
Yeah.
I would turn to other major technologies that impacted humanity in a big way. For example, like cars,
I don't think they did enough ushering previously either, though. That's why I'm asking the question. Yeah.
right? I think the ethics always should play a role in business, right? I remember taking business ethics in college and even joking around about it. I remember Happy Gilmore, business ethics, right?
That's right. Business ethics.
The ethics should always play a role. So if you're part of a team creating this technology that's self-learning, there should absolutely be some ethical part of there should be a team focusing on the ethics of it,
Yeah.
building in fail safes, maybe helping those understand that we'll go out and educate. Not necessarily because it's like the scientist that creates the formula. They're not necessarily the best salesman,
No.
but being able to explain it. Because what I've learned from my very brief interaction with AI is there's a lot. It's especially if you're someone like me who's I understand tech, I like it, but I can't program.
Right.
So there's a lot. There's a lot in the terminology. There's a lot to understand in the back end. Just trying to figure out how a neural network works or learning. It's a lot. But on the side of the ethics, I believe there's a responsibility to some degree of this is the product we're creating. It's like the company that came out, these push mowers, and there's a reason why that sticker's on the push mower that shows the ends of your fingers getting cut off is because people pick them up and try to trim their hedges with them, right?
You
So
know, people do random shit, man.
so then after that, after your product is out in the market, you realize, oh yeah, we should probably spend a little bit of time saying what this does, and that's the ethics.
Yeah.
The car company that had, you know, back in the 70s, what is it, unsafe at any speed, the Corvair thing. Was that Nader?
It sounds familiar now that you're saying that.
There's always these case
More for the
studies,
show notes.
these cautionary tales about companies that it became public of how they looked at their ethics. We're
Yeah.
going to compare the cost to fix this problem compared to how many people die using our product. I think that as humanity's evolved, which I think is arguable quite a bit, they're yeah, just putting it out on the market, putting it out in use without any kind of maybe not straight warnings, but explanations on what this can do.
Yeah.
You're right.
No, it's valid. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. So, moving to another topic in the future, how do you see health care and the beauty industry in the future? Because things are changing.
Oh, quite a bit. So with beauty, let's start with beauty. I'm not so with
Yeah, how do you label it? What
so
you do?
well
Is it
like
more
healthcare is a healthcare is a oh by the way, I know you can cut this out. My tick is so all you have to do in Descript is type in it'll pull them all out and you can
yeah,
erase all the thousand of
as
those.
and,
You know,
um yeah, no,
My-
no, I get
mine
it.
is and I know what it looks like in the healthcare. I would healthcare is a really broad topic. So with
The as it relates to the industry you're in,
right, so personal care products,
personal
beauty and
care,
cosmetics.
beauty,
Personal care
cosmetic.
products, broad category.
Okay,
Hair, skin and nails, lips, anything related to the body.
okay,
And then that's your broad category. And then as you get into the segment, beauty,
okay,
skincare, hair care, cosmetics. Back in I want to say 2012, I was meeting with a company that was just starting to use some technology. A good friend of mine here, who actually we know through a connection through Pear. I was telling you about. He had that skincare. He had a cosmetics company for foundation that matched
okay.
skin tone. So
Yeah,
this is the first time I saw a technology being, a software, a technology being paired up with a physical product. And hugely successful brand. Essentially, the user would download an app, take a picture of their skin. This company would create a foundation from the information gathered from the photo.
yeah,
That was 7 or 8 years ago when I started my first skincare company 8 years ago. Same thing. There was the technology we were using was handheld devices, RF tools, red LEDs,
okay,
things that are qu- they're not medical devices. They have to be regulated by the FDA, but they're, over the counter things.
okay,
Moving forward, the technology that I would start to align with this space is not physical products, it's AI,
okay.
AR and AI. The technology it's changing it's got its hands or its tentacles in every kind of market. Beauty's no different. Beauty and skincare. Example, today, if you are a teenager and you have an acne problem, which we probably all remember, at least as I remember,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
Did
go
you
to
have a
the
lot of acne?
not really.
Oh,
It
okay.
wasn't a thing. But I had friends that did. And is an adolescent boy playing football and raging testosterone, and he saw it.
Yeah,
Everybody knew about, I think it was Oxy. So you went to the store and
yeah.
you bought not Oxy,
No, not OxyContin. No, no, no. Oxy, the face
Oxy.
wash.
I think it was just
Because
called Oxy
they used to have also those little,
pads,
yeah, the pads that you could use to wipe. That's when Neutrogena was also popping off.
salicylic acid, something like this. It
Is
was
that
just a
what's in it?
light acid. Yeah,
Oh,
it would
okay.
clean out your pores. I think it was salicylic. So there's a product that was put out for to solve this problem, and y- if you had the condition, you go get it. It's
Mhm.
fine. It's how it's been for since the industrial revolution, maybe before.
Okay.
Technology like AI and AR is changing that. First time I saw it was with this brand, this friend of mine that had the foundation brand. He was using these are mass tailored products.
Okay.
Now you can use AI or AR to analyze your skin. You can go in as a woman. I don't know, but I've heard you can go in as a woman and have a photo taken of your face, and dozens of things can come back. You can be analyzed for your skin type,
Okay.
oily, dry, whatever. You can have your facial structure mapped,
Okay.
curved cheekbones, high cheekbones, whatever. All of these analyses that come in from AI can be used to tailor products, services,
Yeah.
formulations. It's not a stretch. I'm sure there's companies out there working on this stuff. For example, uh, skincare for middle-aged women to
Yeah.
prevent aging. You go and you get a photo taken, or you use an app to take a picture of your face. AI goes in and does what it analyzes the photo, and it says you have oily skin, maybe some crow's feet. Here are the products, or if it's a broad category, here are the products to potentially help with it. If it's a
Yeah.
brand's product, here is the formula we can make for you. Or here is one of our SKUs. Here's a full regimen to
That's
fix
pretty
that.
cool.
The the power of that from a business perspective, if you are the company that has created that software, that app, or that technology, you can tailor your solution to a customer. That's how you gain customer loyalty. It's great,
Yeah.
but you have to invest in that. That's obviously a totally different side of your business,
Yeah.
which we may start looking into with the regimen portion of it, creating like, here are the 5 products, here's when to use them, that kind of thing. Not necessarily the
It
formulation.
sounds like an opportunity to become the go-to source for all personal care beauty companies to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the bigger the company, the faster that can probably be put out to market, because your barrier to entry is obviously going to be the cost to implement
That's
this stuff.
interesting. I mean, now you're making me think that you could almost Salesforce it, right? Like if you became that utility of a service, every personal care and beauty company could just subscribe to your platform.
Oh, you mean to build the products? Yeah, and it would take the right
Well,
kind of.
just to do the tech
Oh,
portion of
right.
it, not build the products. I mean, for you handle a lot of your own products, right? And sourcing of those products, but the tech to ingest the data and decide and to make those recommendations.
Oh, that's what you meant by Salesforce it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because you're building a platform that everybody can just subscribe to, and now
Is a manufacturer can subscribe to,
yeah,
and they can use that data for their own. Yeah. So when you think about a company like L'Oreal, they're a
yeah,
parent company. They own dozens, if not hundreds of brands.
yeah,
That is their play. Coty, L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, these big companies. And that parent obviously has the money to do what I'm talking about, where out of all their various brands beneath them, they have that data. They
yeah,
can create the brands, or they can have their brands in their portfolio create those products, or they can leverage their ownership position by providing that data. Because as we know from the early tech days, users are currency, users are value, data's value, big data.
yeah,
This is a different kind of data.
but you're able to make it actionable.
Yeah. If you think about in the early 2000s, I take a picture of you, good looking guy, beard.
Hey,
Yeah.
flatter, I
And
love
I,
it. You my dopamine, thank you.
the dopamine, Andrew Huberman would be proud.
Yeah, you would.
You can look at an expert could come in and look at your face and say, he's got high cheekbones, he uses sunscreen.
Chipmunk cheekbones.
That's what I have, chipmunks.
Do you?
Chipmunk
Your
cheekbones.
purple plays it down, it looks good.
Yeah, you gotta have a big head when you're tall to kinda balance it out. The
But I'm short, I have a huge head.
it's all proportion. The expert to come in and analyze that's one thing, but if you have AI that's able to AI can see things that humans can't, obviously, with the amount of data points and
Yeah,
the speed. So technology's driving all sorts of industries, but it's also opening up these opportunities, and for skincare, hair care, cosmetics, it's it's not going to be it's not going to be out of this advantage that AI can provide. I think it's going to be a big part of it.
yeah,
At the end of the day, the customer, at least in our experience as a hair care brand, customer loyalty is key. There are thousands of brands out there, and it's a very loud marketplace. Anybody in business knows uh, beauty, skincare, cosmetics. It is a massive industry.
but there's a lot of players that do really well.
There are, and
That's what's interesting. Why
it's an
is that?
FMCG. So it's a fast-moving consumer good. If you make a really good shampoo or conditioner, you make a really good facial product, your customer uses it every month.
Yeah.
So you're talking about hockey stick growth, your return customer rate. You focus on your return customer rate. Every
I
month you're
yeah.
trying to add to that. So when you talk about companies like Oribe, which
Okay.
it most
I'm
people
not familiar with Oribe.
right, it's very high-end hair care products,
Okay.
hairsprays, pomades,
Okay.
shampoos, conditioners. And I may be getting my data wrong here, but at least the last time I looked this up, maybe a few years ago, husband and wife, majority owners, a brand that most people you talk to on the street probably haven't heard of, sold for $600 million to one of these Estee Lauder.
After how many years in business?
I don't know. It wasn't decades. So when you think about
Damn.
the size of the market and you really look at opportunity, skincare, hair care, cosmetics, subscription model fits right in. FMCGs, you if you want to do a mass product, something that's drug retail, you price it so that Rite Aid, CVS, Walgreens can carry it. Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
2,500 locations around the country, people making this part of the regimen. So back to the technology aspect, but like AI and AR too. You can try it. You can see what your face looks like with certain makeup. So you go in, same person. Aside from skincare and hair care, now you're talking cosmetics, foundations, eyeliner, any of those painting procedures that people use to um, accent the various features of their face. Right
Yeah.
now, you can use AR to see what it looks like if you choose. An example would be the high cheekbones thing or the rounded cheekbones. You can see what your face looks like with that product applied.
Yeah.
Wild.
I think I don't know if it was you and I were talking different time, but I remember when we started doing some coding when we had an agency for iPads, and my daughter got a hold of the iPad, and just when she was, maybe 5 or 6, and she started kissing the iPad, but it was like a picture of a lady or something like that, and she was in her mind, she was trying on lipstick. And I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute. You could try on lipstick by
Yeah.
just doing what you're talking about." So now with this new automated way of getting there, it'd just be amazing. To be able to see it, right? Because that's what people need. People are visual, right?
We'll
You
try.
can't describe things, most people can't. They can't envision it. So if they can visually see it, yeah, that'll be wildly helpful.
Every product has that. That goes back to the AI question. You have to visualize yourself doing it. That's why
Yeah.
Tony the Tiger playing soccer after eating that bowl of sugar
Yeah,
flakes.
yeah.
So the guy that goes in or the person that goes in and tries on glasses, you look in the mirror, you put on the glasses, look in the mirror, it changes your entire face.
It's true, it's true.
So you have a technology that's still in its early days, arguably. AI is still figuring itself out. Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on
Humans are
there.
figuring out their place with it.
Right. And then the learning, right?
Yeah.
Because every day it's more data, it's more points of convergence and figuring this stuff out. So back to the beauty market, I don't I think anybody with a strong grasp on their market or their industry can make a dozen arguments for AI's importance in their industry.
Yeah.
Beauty's no different. We could sit here for 3 hours and come up with five different business ventures.
I'm already excited about one.
And what
Yeah.
makes my industry and why I really like being in this industry exciting is your product life cycles, depending on how you start out, your product life cycle can continuously evolve. You
Yeah.
can always evolve products. The market is massive because you're talking about, at least in America, you're talking about a very large range of people. If you're in skincare, you can reach men, women, 18, 65 years old, wherever, by using your product, getting a benefit from it, becoming
Yeah.
loyal to your brand, and reordering every 30, 60 days. And your job is to keep putting out a good product. But if you're using AI or you're implementing things like AI or AR, you can offer more services to your customer. Your customers don't like to be grouped, right? Nobody likes that feeling.
No, it's valid.
If you go in, it's there's there and you can see this in products, even in beauty or hair care. Maybe there's five variations of a product. And like with us, we have products that for oily hair. So you're now, do you have oily hair? It may not be specific to you, but you're in that group. So you're over here with these people. Like this, the more dialed in you can get to your customer to a very individualized experience, that's the ticket. That's where the loyalty comes from. That's where my friend's brand with the foundation really nailed it. Was this isn't a foundation where you're like 50 other women that we made this shade for. This is your shade.
It reminds me when you go into Home Depot and you want a specific color and you
Yeah,
take it and you bring them the different swatches or the codes, and then they will take you and mix it in a way that makes sense to how you want it to be, right?
right.
And so I'm just thinking about that, and that's awesome.
Think
I
about Le Labo. Do you remember Le Labo? I think they're still
No.
around.
Le Labo? Educate
Fragrance,
me.
fragrance,
No.
fantastic. So I first met my wife. We don't wear perfume or cologne. She's very averse to fragrance from her first pregnancy, which we'll get into later.
Okay.
Um, Her first pregnancy, it changed how fragrance impacts her.
Yeah.
So women with cologne or fragrance or perfume really, you know. So there was one perfume that she could only wear, and it was one she designed in a place called Le Labo. And
Okay.
there was one here in Venice. You'd walk in, and it was a lab,
Oh,
and
that's
you would
so
just sit
cool.
down and you'd smell, and they put your number on it.
Yeah, yeah.
That was my first, aside from my friend's foundation company. This is this is a truly remarkable concept. This is Adam's fragrance. This is
Yeah,
Ola's fragrance. Then is my business mind starts kicking. It's like, how do you scale that? That's the problem. If I'm making
yeah,
a hair care product for someone, for example, we do a eyelash growth product, and some people do have an eyelash sensitivity,
yeah,
especially redheads,
yeah.
fair skin. The one of the preservatives we use can irritate your skin. So
The only
the
reason why I know anything about that is because the eyelash serum company I'm involved with.
right.
That's the only reason. Otherwise, who would who really knows that information unless you're in it?
You're right. So you get the product, you try it, you're like, wow, this really burns my eyeball. And then you look up reviews and almost nobody's talking about it, maybe one or two. So there's a you can't use my product. You can if you want to deal with it for 30 seconds, but so as a business person, business mind, I'd say, well, I really want to make a product for that person because people do get a benefit from our products. There needs to be enough of that of a person with that quantity of people with that problem to justify going into production. That's your barrier, which is goes back to why I said someone like a company like L'Oreal or Estee Lauder with those kinds of pockets could say mass produced, mass produced custom products. That's the challenge.
Yeah,
That the whole point of economies of scale. You know, you have a product and you can make 100,000 of them. That's the point. But if everyone is customized in Dell, isn't that how they started in Gateway Computers? You could customize it. But
to a certain extent, yeah.
that was getting into that realm of mass customization.
Well, there's that T-shirt company called Custom Ink,
Yes.
and they've created a way to where you can do small batch T-shirt orders, tchotchke orders, right? And they did it in a way that was very user friendly to how the consumer would come to the website and do all that. I know they've become more proprietary now, but they in the beginning they just sourced local vendors, small vendors,
Right.
right? And they would take, whatever their percentage was or however they negotiated it, but that's how they did those small batch runs in certain cities and everything.
Think about your typical consumer. We're all consumers
Yep.
up to above a certain age. No, I take that back. My 5-year-old tells me what he wants. He might not have the means, but he
He's
tells me,
still
yeah,
consuming, yeah.
he's a consumer. So everybody's a consumer, and there's something about being able to go in and have a product made for you.
Yeah.
So AI, AR, just like what we learned bringing some components of AI into our workflow, I could see how very quickly in the future you could get closer to that idea of mass customized product. Because at the end of the day, again, whether you like capitalism or not, we all have needs for products, and the business that can. create that relationship with the customer, true genuine relationship. This is
Yeah.
a product I'm making to better your life in some fashion. Um, that's really getting to that point of um, like your ideal, your apex, and AI. I totally see how AI can help
Yeah.
with that.
So another question is future forward. What are your thoughts on crypto?
Interesting, interesting topic because again, back to the early adopter thing. I guess when I was in college and I was in marketing, I
Okay.
was a marketing major in finance. We talked
What
about
college?
Ithaca,
Okay.
Ithaca College, and
Oh, I've been to Ithaca.
Ithaca is a beautiful little town.
It's beautiful. Yeah, we would drive out to Unadilla 'cause it's a real
Oh,
small
oh,
town
oh, yeah,
just
yeah.
south of it because that's where they held the motocross races.
Yes, yes, Unadilla. Yes. So at Ithaca, I was marketing and finance. I actually went to Ithaca because of the finance, the trading room.
Yeah.
It was a big deal in the 90s. So we would learn these marketing concepts, your core concepts like early adopters, laggards, right? Uh, I never would have, if you asked me at any given time, are you an early adopter? I'd say, yeah, I'm not averse to that kind of stuff. But the more as I'm getting older and critical mass is continuously on my mind, I've got a family. Being an early adopter for certain things is not my thing. And I think crypto falls into the category of I'm not the early adopter for that. With my finance background, spending some time in the financial sector in New York, spending a lot of time with various financial instruments, conventional financial instruments, bank loans,
Yeah.
letters, lines of credit, things like this. With crypto, I very clearly remember the beginning days. I remember the story, the pizza, right?
Yeah.
I remember that story. I was actually in San Jose starting a tech company when all that was coming around. And one of my roommates, Nick, actually invested in it. And I remember thinking, you're out of your mind.
Invested in what?
The I don't know if it was Bitcoin, but the technology in the early days, he got involved into
Okay.
that world. He's a finance guy too, still is.
Okay.
I would I had a answer for this up until about a year and a half ago. I
Okay.
would say cryptos, it's not for me.
Okay.
It's a I would always say the stability just isn't right for my life
Okay.
in business, in transactions. And like anybody that consumes media, there's positive and there's negative, and I only focused on the negative.
Okay.
Black market drug sales,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Hidden identities, these big crypto scams or fraud or just you couple that with my limited understanding of the word blockchain.
Yeah.
I am one of these people that has to know. It's how I started my first company. Before I could make parts out of metal, I had to learn metallurgy. Before I could assign a task to an employee, I had to know it. I didn't take the time to learn blockchain. I knew the words. So you couple the new technology in the financial sector that has something to do with something I was formally educated on with, conventional
Yeah.
instruments and markets, a lack of understanding of those words, technology, computers, the dark web. And then the time 2008 financial crisis, the instability of markets, my knee jerk reaction or my knee jerk response to you up until about a year and a half ago would have been like, it's nonsense.
So what happened a year and a half ago that made you shift? Oh, you can look at your notes. I like that. You come prepared.
Oh yeah.
There we go, baby.
Well, the reason I have to look is I want to make sure I get the department right.
Okay. Well, I like this. I feel like it's a
So
well thought out response.
about a year ago, a year and a little bit ago, I was fortunate enough to have a luncheon with a guy named Brian Brooks,
Okay.
former controller of currency.
Okay. I know a Brian Brooks, but it's definitely not the same one.
Right. So Brian Brooks came to LA and he had this lunch. We had him for a lunch and a group of us business owners and in LA, and he spoke for an hour and a half about crypto. Now, when I see an event, I'm very I'm very careful of my time where I spend it. And like any luncheon or event, they'll say who the headline speaker is, the keynote, what they're speaking about. Crypto is one of those words I would immediately say, not interested, right? But I realized, I mean, this guy is one of the he's one of the group or the people making it happen. The control of currency. He was running Binance. He was
Okay.
CEO of Binance, former.
Finance US, right?
Mhm. Uh, he was also, I don't know the company he works for now, but anyway, he's one of the key players in crypto. So I said, if I'm going to learn anything about crypto, it's going to be listening to this guy.
Okay.
He also speaks in front of Congress and the House on crypto. He educates people on it. So if he's educating a panel of the House in the House, he has to explain like you're five.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went to the luncheon, and I have to tell you, I kind of like doing this. It's a story from my first company too. I'm the biggest critic, and
Okay.
after listening to Brian speak for an hour and a half, I finally understood why it's important to see this through. And I
Okay.
started getting involved a very little bit
What
because
was it that
it was, first of all,
resonated?
he's an amazing speaker,
Okay.
right? His analogies and the way he explained crypto and blockchain was easy to understand, but he walked the entire group through it because this is a group of business owners in LA that you can tell by walking through, very old school, the majority of them.
Yeah.
And not many people outside of the group that has been involved with Bitcoin, the word blockchain throws a lot of people off. It's a very
Yeah.
confusing topic.
Yeah.
Um,
The nomenclature with all things crypto blockchain related is odd.
when you start talking programming language to people, a lot of people do glaze over.
Yeah.
My identical twin was programming computers, and he would say the word Arduino to me, and I immediately switched off in my head. I have no idea what he's talking about. I don't want to. Uh, but those concepts, if you're already skeptical because it's a financial instrument that's not proven or not regulated or whatever, that's one thing you're throwing on top of that technology speak. Right. So if you're averse, you're really averse. This guy Brian rather, walked this entire room of probably 60 people through this discussion. And at the end of it, you could tell through the questions being asked and my experience, you turned either non believers or completely opposed people into open minded thinking about it, or people that just got involved with it.
Yeah.
Here's why. For one, I I understand. I'm a very old school kind of guy. I love reading stories or the history of people like John Rockefeller. The
Okay.
book Titan, one of my favorite
Yeah,
books.
yeah.
Ron Chernow, I think, right? I love Titans, and I love the idea of capitalism, and I love the building blocks of the Industrial Revolution. And when you think about the financial systems, and obviously spending time in the financial sector in New York, that's a even with all the corruption and like any industry, with the corruption and the issues and the banking
Yeah.
crisis, it's still one of those institutions. It's a very powerful building block foundation of our country. So anything that comes in to try to, and I hate this word, disrupt it.
I knew you were gonna say disrupt. I didn't wanna finish your
Anything
sentence
that
for you.
come in to disrupt that,
Yeah.
I would be opposed to. When Brian first started talking about decentralizing the control, it made total sense
Mhm.
because we just come off the heels of some major banking issues, Wells Fargo, like some pretty big stuff. And you look at it and say, yeah, but and I probably shouldn't drop names, but
You can.
yeah, I
Well,
feel
you're
like it's
just you're reporting.
right. It's just factual. I talked to my
Yeah.
attorney before this. He said, you want to make sure you
I'll
don't
talk about anybody then. We can go Experian. Was it Experian or Equifax that had the big data breach?
Experian.
See?
Oh, no, Equifax, because
Equifax,
that had
okay.
to do with the workers' comp. They deal with employment stuff too, right? Equifax.
Yeah. We'll put it in our show notes, but yeah.
Half the country, right?
It was a lot.
I think it was half the 140 million or something like that. So first talking about the concept, decentralizing
Yeah,
banking. Wow, it makes sense. It's like, okay, so instead of having a few very powerful players control the movement of money outside of cash, make it level the playing field. Amazing. Then Brian started talking more about how the blockchain secures it and explaining what that is because again, it's a complicated if you try to read it and learn it yourself, it can be complicated. If someone spells out for you uses analogies, it's quite simple. The idea that there's like this ledger. I'm an accounting guy. I love my ledgers. Checks and balances. You do have every transaction has an offsetting transaction. The idea that there's a ledger that anybody can access to verify the transactions, beautiful.
yeah,
I think we're on a side note, blockchain was interesting to me was following ingredients from source all the way to final product.
yeah.
That was a concept we talked about years ago with a company out in Santa Monica. There was a company looking to do that for rice production, I think was one of the things from blockchain that was verifying every movement of grains of rice all the way to customer's table. Brilliant.
What you're talking about, did you ever watch the show The Last of Us? The video game that turned into that HBO hit show?
I saw the first couple episodes.
The short premise or what you're saying that reminded me of that use case is that in the show, in the video game, the virus spread because it was within the products that we were consuming,
Oh, and you couldn't trace it back to its
and you
origin.
couldn't trace it back of how, and they didn't realize it till it was too late. In this particular scenario, maybe that would have proved to be a wild benefit, right? I know this is a fictional story, but
No, the concept
the
is
concept is valid enough to consider.
the group I was talking to in 2012 about this, they were looking at it for things like validating the ingredients in a product.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, and I like it when it comes to things like if a product says that they're green, are they? What
Yeah.
farm does it come from?
You're speaking my language here, man.
When you start someone who is a pencil and paper kind of business person,
Yeah,
it's hard to get the concept of blockchain tangible enough to incorporate into your business, right?
it can be.
I'm talking when I first heard it.
Let me ask you something about that then, because you talked about having a certain level of schooling and you went into finance, and those are very incumbent, very, very common paths to, when you come out of education and moving into some sector that you're going to make money and provide for your livelihood, right? Do they teach you how to stay curious? Because it seems like you wanted to keep learning, but it not necessarily you were nurtured to within the education system, or were you?
When I came through college, it was the early 2000s, late
Okay,
90s, early 2000s. I think it's quite different now.
okay.
The idea that you could go out and start your own company was there, but it's not like it is now.
Yeah,
The tools weren't even in place to do it.
that's valid for sure.
If you come out of college now and you have an idea, you can build a Shopify store in a day. When I was coming through college, they taught us HTML. There were no there was a back end system you could use to and this is answering a question, I promise. There were some systems in place where you could build an inventory slash like checkout, but it was built on ASP network.
Oh my gosh, action script. Yeah.
Yeah. But to do that, you had to have the education to do it. It wasn't in a box like Shopify.
Yeah, not like it is now.
So I think when I was coming through college, what I went to school for was to go work on Wall Street
Okay.
without signing cliche.
Yeah,
I went to college to work on Wall Street
I got you.
and be a specialist on the trading floor of the in New York Stock Exchange. There were 13 specialists, I think, 13. The guy in the booth that's matching the bids to the ask, right? So when when you met someone that was an entrepreneur or someone that was a business owner, it wasn't as common as it is now. And people in school were going to school to work for big companies. Almost all of my friends in college had the internship with the company they eventually got hired by. I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I think just inherently I was a curious person. My brother and I were both curious. We're like I said, my twin, we always took things apart. We had this curiosity for how things work or why things are the way that why are there ridges on a dime? I remember learning that when I was a kid, like why does a dime and a quarter have a ridge and not a nickel? And then I figured out I was like, that makes sense. It's valid. Um,
Which is why, because 'Cause I'm curious now.
Back in
I
the
don't have
day,
possess that information.
right? So the ridges on a dime or a quarter were because there were precious metals in there. There were silver and things. So people would shave coins and melt down and make new. With the ridges, you could see if someone shaved it. It was to prevent
Oh,
making additional coins, right?
interesting.
Right. So your smaller denominations like pennies and nickels didn't need them because it would take a lot, but a quarter or a dime, something that had silver in it, you could shave down a bunch of them and make more coins. So it was a
Interesting.
control. I used to know the number. A dime only had one less ridge than a quarter. I used to know how many ridges there were on it.
Damn.
Nerd
No,
stuff.
no, but I like
I told a
the
girl on a date once and we never saw each other again. She thought it was the biggest nerd
clearly, she
thing.
just wasn't the right one for you, that's all.
So
That's a great criterion filter.
that's the kind of curiosity I had ever since on a tangent, when I was really young, my brother and I got these walkie-talkies, earbud with a little coiled cord to a box, and it was the first time I saw the word Vox, like
Mhm.
voice activated. And we didn't understand how an earpiece could pick up your voice through the earpiece. And I mean, this was like early 90s. And in our curiosity, we ended up tearing these things apart, figuring out how the coils worked, and then reversed them to create a broadcast. And we made our own radio station
Ah,
to where we were
that's so
broadcasting on a
rad.
scanner channel. But so that curiosity was always there. I think, and I hate to say this, I think for the majority of people, you're probably born with that curiosity. I think that if
In a lot of cases, sure, nature over nurture.
yeah, and I think that it can come about if there is something that can be a passion. If
Yeah.
someone finds something that they didn't know they had a passion about, then you could get the curiosity. But I think for at least in my case, my curiosity is broad. If it could be something I don't care anything about, but I will do a deep dive into it, which is actually one of the questions you asked is part of my, the it wasn't routine. I forgot how you framed it, but
Yeah, don't jump ahead on me.
every night my family goes to
Yeah.
sleep. I have my time. I'm fortunate my wife goes to bed very early. Very European. She's very into her beauty rest.
Okay.
It clearly works for her.
Good for
This,
you, brother.
that's when I learn. And I'll just pick a topic. It can be something I have zero interest in,
Uh-huh.
needlepoint. It can be but that curiosity is always there, and to satiate that, it has to be deep dives into this stuff, at least enough where I can be dangerous enough in conversation.
Yeah.
So back to the college. Throughout college, I was like that. I took courses that I knew I didn't need.
Yeah.
I in my first year of college, I went to school to be in the FBI. I actually took criminal justice courses. So I went to school and I was focusing on things like criminal justice. I even had a class where we shot guns. Right. So I was learning about I wanted to acquire the skill so I could either be with the FBI or in New York State, they had this a unit called the BCI. State
Okay.
troopers had this Bureau of Criminal Investigation, which it was following my father's footsteps, law enforcement related, but more on the admin side. One of the things that I learned in planning to take on a career like that was they didn't want you to learn criminal justice. They wanted you to have a broad knowledge.
Yeah.
I took that concept into my other disciplines where, yeah, I needed to take your financial courses, financial markets institutions, your accounting and economics courses. But then I would expand out. I took women's studies, which is sounds like a movie thing, but I actually did take a cultural
I get
women's
it.
studies
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
I mean the title, like I'm in women's study underwater basket weaving. But I took these courses I took one course in Ithaca for sports management, economics of sports, and
Okay.
we learned things like why a stadium how a stadium, for a baseball event would block out the stands if it's not a total sellout. Like, the economics of sporting events had nothing to do
Yeah.
but things that later in life have popped up. So, yeah, when I was going through college, I always had this open mind to learning things. I never looked at a topic as something that was either beneath me or not of interest. There was always someone studying it, so I wanted to know. There are topics I generally have to really push to understand, to really get enough interest to do deep dives. But at the end of the day, I'm just a curious person. And when it comes to things like, um, if you said to me, what are your thoughts on cultivating oak trees,
Mhm.
for furniture manufacturing? I'd say, well, give me a day or two and then I'll do my research. And I will inevitably find something in that that's fascinating that I will glom onto and probably try to incorporate into something I'm doing.
Yeah,
This is how I've always been.
that's cool.
Yeah. Right. So moving beyond that luncheon with Brian Brooks and him going over how blockchain works, why crypto is something that will be a big player. The concept that really got me was how you can offer financial instruments to people outside of America to uh, transfer value.
Yeah,
And that's when my view of crypto really expanded. And I would say in a closing thought on crypto, now I'm not against it, but I do believe he went into a lot about stable coins. I do believe that there should be some kind of regulation, but where I think the balancing act is into making this viable enough for me to participate,
yeah,
at least on a large scale, say a business,
yeah,
is how a government like ours or any government gets involved with regulation without totally destroying the concept and making it
yeah,
centralized. Obviously, that's the billion-dollar question, right? How you do that.
yeah,
Because like anything, the whole point of decentralization is so not one person can control it or entity or whatever with a little bit of regulation. And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know enough about it to give an answer, but I do know that they're not something like the NF the I just drew a blank here, the insurer there that insures up to $200,000 of
the
deposits.
FDIC?
FDI, thank you. The FDIC, not on that level, because then who are you going to follow that regulation? There's
Yeah,
nobody. It's
it's supposed to be self-governed.
right. So if there's a way to regulate or help stabilize it a little bit, maybe it is backing a stable coin to a dollar, which would also help the dollar's value in other
Well,
countries.
that's why they introduced the ETFs for 'em, right?
That was recent, right?
Yeah, very recent, at the top of the year,
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah, so I think, and that's a way I would start getting involved. I do get involved with ETFs, right? I love the idea of, that you can be in a fund and do midday trading. That's amazing, right? Not the 90s. Uh, but I think overall, now moving forward, when I see the word blockchain or crypto, blockchain is something that I am fully for. I think that's amazing. Transparent ledgers, amazing. You can verify transactions. Crypto itself, yeah. I think that again, there's some things to work out, but if the government gets overly involved, I don't think I don't think it can. I don't think people would allow that. But I do think that I think it is going to be a big part of life. And it makes sense. I mean, everything's digital. It makes sense. You have to overcome someone like me who would say, what is the value
Yeah,
with a dollar? I mean, because look, when the pegged standard on a dollar lifted, people freaked out,
yeah.
right? So that's why they put that in God we trust. It's like, no, trust us.
Well, it's
It's
a
not backed by gold.
well, the dollar says it's basically a promissory note. It's a promise to pay.
Yeah, up until what
So
was it? The 1930s they did that? There was a gold standard. There was for every dollar on the market, there was a chunk of gold.
yeah, that's no longer.
No, and you can't because there are finite resources for gold, but, digital assets. So, no, I do think Brian did an amazing job, and I continue to follow what he's doing,
Yeah,
where there's I'm up to 20,000 already.
that's alright.
I continue to follow what he's doing and how he explains these things moving forward, moving this kind of stuff through the government to try to help regulate those stable coins or create some kind of a protection because at the end of the day, it's like the AI thing. Either get on the train, right? Or you're gonna be the guy living in the middle of Montana only accepting cash, right?
Maybe he can and through his lifetime.
He's very good.